Imagine standing in the middle of the African savannah nearly 2 million years ago. Every sound around you signals danger. The distant roar of a saber-toothed cat, the heavy footsteps of an ancient rhinoceros, and somewhere nearby, the shadow of a giant crocodile lurking silently beneath the marsh. In that world, humans were not hunters. We were someone else's dinner. Yet amid this perilous landscape, a new kind of human emerged, taller, tougher, and bold enough to chase creatures far stronger than itself. And that boldness opened one of the most important evolutionary chapters in human history. When the first human began to appear, Earth was undergoing a period of intense upheaval. Between about 2.8 and 1.8 million years ago, the global climate became drier and more unpredictable than it had been for millions of years. Vast rainforests gradually gave way to open grasslands where shade was scarce and water became a precious resource. This transformation was not an overnight shift, but it was powerful enough to reshape the entire ecosystem of Africa and much of Eurasia. The expansion of the grasslands brought sweeping changes to the animal world. Large herbivores such as ancient zebras, primitive buffalo, and the early ancestors of antelopes thrived. But where there is prey in abundance, there are predators to match. On land, saber-toothed cats and giant hyenas reigned supreme. In the water, crocodiles nearly 5 meters long lay in wait for anything that ventured too close. For early humans like Homo habilis and the last Australopithecines, this environment was a vast trap. They were too small, too slow, and too weak to face most predators. Every journey away from shelter could easily be their last. Yet it was precisely this harshness that created powerful evolutionary pressure. Individuals who endured better, observed more keenly, or simply got luckier were the ones who passed on their traits. Over hundreds of thousands of years, these small advantages accumulated. At some point, they combined to produce a completely new form, a human, taller, sturdier, and better suited to the expanding dry world. This was the stage upon which Homo erectus was about to appear, not as prey, but as a predator. In a world of volatile climate, shifting resources, and ever more dangerous predators, pre-erectus hominins, such as Homo habilis and other early Homo forms, could do little more than survive. They had primitive tools and scavenged animal carcasses, but had yet to improve their position in the food chain. So what made Homo erectus the true turning point of evolution? Most scientists believe they first appeared in Africa around 1.9 million years ago. Another hypothesis suggests that their ancestors may have evolved in Asia and later spread back into Africa, though evidence for this remains limited. Thus, this idea is considered a secondary perspective rather than the main conclusion. Despite disagreements over their origin, all evidence indicates that Homo erectus possessed physical changes unseen in earlier species. They were much taller, on average between 1.6 and 1.8 meters, with thick, robust skeletons. Their skulls were long with low foreheads, but their brain volume had increased significantly, allowing for more complex information processing. Their feet were almost fully modern, with a well-defined arch, large heel bones, and a straight-aligned big toe. This proved that they were truly adapted for long-distance walking and running on 2 legs. Their hips and spine were stable, optimized for traveling great distances, a major advantage that earlier hominins lacked. The face of Homo erectus also evolved to suit its new environment. A strong jaw but smaller teeth than its ancestors, and a prominent nose thought to help warm and humidify air in dry, dusty conditions. These traits did not appear overnight. They accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years under the combined pressures of climate change, energy demands, and survival challenges. When these adaptations converged, Homo erectus crossed a threshold no earlier human had reached. A powerful body, enduring mobility, greater intelligence, and the ability to actively hunt prey. The emergence of Homo erectus did not just mark a new species. It laid the foundation for the entire Homo lineage that followed. From that moment, human evolution began shifting from avoiding predators to becoming the predator. When Homo erectus appeared, they were not simply an improved version of Homo habilis, but a complete evolutionary turning point. The features of their body show that this was the first hominin truly adapted to be an active hunter. To understand their body is to understand the foundation that allowed them to rise to a position no human before had achieved. Body shape was the most visible change. While earlier hominins were short and small, Homo erectus stood between 1.6 and 1.8 meters tall, comparable to modern humans. What made them stand out even more was their thick, heavy, and extremely sturdy skeleton, allowing them to withstand impacts and stand firm against the force of large animals. This was a vital trait for a species that ran long distances and sometimes faced prey directly. Their body proportions also reflected superior mobility. With long legs, shorter arms, and a stable pelvis and spine, they could take long strides and move efficiently with minimal energy use. They were completely different from Australopithecus, which still relied heavily on climbing. Homo erectus was born to travel, capable of covering tens of kilometers in a single day. Heat regulation was one of their greatest advantages. They had many sweat glands, allowing efficient cooling while running under the sun, while herbivores easily overheated after long chases. Homo erectus could keep pursuing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. This was the foundation of persistence hunting, the strategy that made them the first true hunters in human history. The feet of Homo erectus also showed clear adaptations for long-distance running. A developed arch, large heel, and straight-aligned big toe helped absorb impact and propel the body forward efficiently. These traits show that they didn't just have the ability to run, their bodies were built for it. The face of Homo erectus also changed to fit a more meat-rich diet. Smaller teeth and jaws suited the processing of food that had already been cut with tools. The protruding nose, according to many hypotheses, helped warm and humidify air before it entered the lungs, ideal for dry, hot, and dusty environments. Though still speculative, this aligns well with the anatomy of modern humans living in similar climates. One of the most important changes was the brain. With an average volume of 850 to 1,100 cubic centimeters, much larger than that of Homo habilis. A larger brain was not only linked to more complex thinking, but also to social behavior. Planning hunts, crafting tools, and cooperating in groups. Things no earlier hominin had maintained consistently. When all their traits are viewed together, strong bones, long legs, excellent heat regulation, feet optimized for running, a face adapted for meat consumption, and a large brain, the picture becomes clear. Homo erectus was the first human species with a body built for active hunting, not merely scavenging when opportunity arose. Thanks to this unique physique, they escaped the role of prey and gradually climbed to the top of the food chain. From there, everything else became possible, using more advanced tools, developing group strategies, expanding territory, and thriving in diverse environments. The powerful body of Homo erectus was the foundation that allowed them to open an entirely new chapter in human evolution. a chapter whose next part reveals how they became the first humans to reach the top of the food chain. Before Homo erectus appeared, no human species could truly be called a hunter. Homo habilis and earlier hominins mainly scavenged carcasses or fought for leftovers from large predators. Many bones from that period show cut marks layered over predator bite marks, clear evidence they arrived after, taking only what remained. With small bodies, limited endurance, and poor coordination, they had little chance of actively chasing large animals. The emergence of Homo erectus marked a complete turning point. For the first time, a human species was capable of tracking, attacking, and bringing down megafauna. This is clearly reflected in archaeological sites containing bones of ancient horses, primitive buffalo, giant boars, and even elephants, accompanied by Acheulean tools. Deep, sharp cut marks along joints and tendons show that the animals were processed immediately after death, evidence of active hunting rather than scavenging. A remarkable case is that of a fossilized crocodile in Kenya, showing traces that may have been caused by Homo erectus. Though not confirmed, this hypothesis suggests they were bold enough to confront dangerous predators. The advantage of Homo erectus did not lie in sudden bursts of speed, but in strategy and coordination. Fossilized footprints in Kenya show groups moving together, some even in overlapping trackways, possibly belonging to adult males, hinting at organized group hunting. Some individuals may have driven prey from afar, while others blocked escape routes or attacked from unexpected directions. Their greatest strength was endurance. With abundant sweat glands, long legs, and efficient heat regulation, they could run for hours under the scorching sun. Meanwhile, large herbivores easily overheated when chased for long periods. As a result, Homo erectus could pursue prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, a tactic known as persistence hunting. Once the prey slowed down, Homo erectus closed in and delivered attacks using tools. The Acheulean hand axe, though not a specialized weapon, was sharp and heavy enough to inflict serious injuries. Their shoulder structure also allowed them to throw stones or tools with significant force, not as powerfully as modern humans, but enough to slow down prey. Imagine a group of 4 to 5 tall, muscular Homo erectus individuals working together to chase an ancient antelope. As the animal weakened, one approached for the strike, while the others surrounded it to block escape. This may have been the first example of cooperative hunting in human history. The rise of Homo erectus to the top of the food chain did not happen overnight. It was the result of hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. An optimized body for endurance running, intelligence to recognize opportunity, increasingly effective tools, and ever greater group coordination. When all these traits came together, Homo erectus became the first hominin capable of altering the balance of power in nature. From this point onward, hunting did more than provide energy. It drove technological innovation, territorial expansion, and social cohesion, laying the foundation for all later Homo species, including us. When we think of hunting, most people imagine the lightning-fast pounce of a cheetah or the precise leap of a lion. But Homo erectus followed a completely different strategy, one that required neither great speed nor sharp claws. What they possessed instead was something almost no other creature on Earth had: near-endless endurance. Persistence hunting was the strategy that Homo erectus was biologically equipped to perform. This tactic did not rely on delivering quick, fatal blows, but on the ability to chase prey over long distances, exploiting a critical weakness in large mammals. They cannot run continuously under intense heat without overheating. To understand why this strategy worked, we need to look at the biology of both predator and prey. When chased, large herbivores are forced to sprint to maintain a safe distance, but sprinting causes their bodies to heat up rapidly. They cool down by panting, a method effective while resting or walking slowly, but inefficient during prolonged running. If they continue to move at high speed, their body temperature soon rises to dangerous levels. Homo erectus, in contrast, had a cooling system based on sweating, an extremely rare advantage in nature. While many animals rely on panting to release heat, Homo erectus simply lets sweat evaporate, keeping their body temperature stable even under the blazing sun. This allowed them to keep following the prey even as it was forced to slow down to avoid overheating. Imagine this scene. An ancient antelope sprints away in an initial burst, disappearing from sight for several minutes. But Homo erectus didn't need to sight constantly. They tracked it through footprints, bent grass, disturbed dust, and even the scent left on the ground. Each time the antelope sprinted, it overheated faster. Each time it had to slow down, Homo erectus closed the distance. The chase could last for hours, and when the prey reached its thermal limit, often before any serious injury, it simply collapsed. This strategy has been observed among some modern hunter-gatherer tribes, such as the Sand People of Africa, proving its feasibility in nature. Thanks to these modern parallels, scientists have strong reasons to infer that Homo erectus, with a body nearly optimized for endurance running, very likely used the same strategy. Another element that supported this tactic was tracking skill, which required focus and excellent spatial memory. This is where the larger brain of Homo erectus came into play. They didn't just run on instinct, they analyzed tracks to tell when prey had changed direction, whether it was running, walking, or trying to hide. This ability shortened the chase and reduced the risks involved. Remarkably, persistence hunting required no complex weapons. A group of fit individuals, armed only with a few stones or simple tools, could succeed. However, many researchers believe that Homo erectus may have used stones or sharp tools to inflict minor wounds at the start of the chase, causing blood loss or pain that reduced the prey's stamina. Though not yet fully proven, this idea fits well with their shoulder anatomy, which allowed them to throw objects with considerable force. By the time the hunt ended, Homo erectus no longer needed to engage in a deadly struggle with a desperate, dying animal. The prey was far too exhausted to fight back. This is why persistence hunting is considered the least risky hunting strategy for a species that lacked sophisticated weapons like Homo erectus. Through endurance running, tracking, and thermal control, they turned stamina itself into their primary weapon. This was not merely a way to obtain food. It marked the beginning of profound behavioral shifts, teamwork, planning, task division, and the development of tools. Persistence hunting proved that Homo erectus didn't need superior strength to reach the top of the food chain. They simply made use of what evolution had already given them, and that was enough to change the course of human history. If endurance and an optimized body allowed Homo erectus to chase prey, intelligence and technology were what turned those pursuits into true success. Around the time they appeared, stone tools already existed in the form of the Oldowan tradition, small, sharp flakes mainly used for pounding or splitting bones. But Homo erectus made a remarkable leap forward, the Aquilan tool culture, marking the first time humans intentionally designed tools with standardized shapes and clear purposes. The hallmark of Aquilan technology was the hand axe. Though it looked simple, it required many precise strikes to produce a teardrop shape evenly thinned on both sides. This demonstrates that Homo erectus could plan ahead and visualize the finished product before beginning to craft it. The hand axe allowed them to process meat more efficiently, dismember joints easily, split bones for marrow, and even chop wood for temporary shelters. While not a specialized weapon, it was heavy and sharp enough to inflict injuries when needed. Remarkably, Acheulean tools endured for nearly 1.5 million years with very little change, longer than any other technology in human history. This stability was not a sign of stagnation, but evidence that the hand axe had reached near-perfect optimization for their survival needs. A common question arises. Did Homo erectus know how to use spears or thrown weapons? The oldest known wooden spears, dating to about 400,000 years ago, display advanced craftsmanship, making it unlikely that such technology appeared suddenly. Therefore, many scientists believe that primitive forms of spears may have already been used by Homo erectus, though this remains a hypothesis. This idea aligns with their shoulder and arm structure, which closely resembled that of modern humans and allowed for powerful throwing. The intelligence of Homo erectus was revealed not only through their tools, but also through their collective behavior. Making a hand axe required observation, practice, and instruction, an early form of education. The presence of multiple tools at the same site suggests that they processed animal carcasses in groups, with division of roles and coordination in butchering and guarding against predators. These are not absolute proof of complex social organization, but they show a level of cooperation far beyond that of earlier hominins. In Homo erectus, intelligence manifested not just in brain size, but in their ability to integrate tools, planning, observation, memory, and teamwork into a complete survival system. As their tools became more effective, they could hunt larger animals. With larger prey came more energy to fuel both body and brain, creating a positive feedback loop that accelerated evolution. Homo erectus was not merely a species that used tools. They were the first to weave technology into their survival strategy, a foundation later refined by their descendants, from Homo heidelbergensis to Homo sapiens. Fire was not just another tool. It was a revolutionary turning point that completely changed how Homo erectus survived. Before them, no human species had clearly mastered fire, and the earliest archaeological traces, found in Kenya and South Africa, dating to about 1 to 1.5 million years ago, are all associated with Homo erectus. However, these sites only confirm that fire was present in their environment, not that they created it themselves. Most scientists believe that in the early stages, Homo erectus simply collected fire from natural wildfires and tried to keep it burning for as long as possible. Keeping fire was no simple task. It required knowledge of fast-burning materials, slow-burning ones, and methods to shield the flame from wind. They may have used dried animal dung, decayed branches, or strips of bark to keep embers smoldering through the night. The ability to maintain fire created a safer living environment. Many large predators feared light and heat, so even a small pile of glowing coals could protect the group from threats like hyenas or saber-toothed cats. But the most significant impact of fire was the ability to cook food. Raw meat was hard to digest, full of parasites, and required powerful jaws to chew. Once cooked, protein softened, fat became easier to absorb, and the body could extract much more energy. Many scientists believe that eating cooked food may have contributed to the brain development of Homo erectus, though this remains a hypothesis. Beyond meat, Fire also allowed them to process roots, tubers, and hard seeds, greatly expanding their food supply. Fire further enabled them to inhabit colder regions. Evidence shows that Homo erectus appeared in areas with long, harsh winters, something unlikely without the ability to stay warm consistently. Fire also offered defensive advantages. Half-burned branches that could be used as weapons, and nighttime light reduced the risk of surprise attacks. Some hypotheses suggest they even used fire to manipulate their surroundings, burning grass to clear paths or to attract grazing animals to fresh regrowth. While not yet confirmed, multiple burn layers in sediment deposits support this possibility. The social impact of fire was immense. When night fell and hunting ceased, Homo erectus gathered around the flames to warm themselves, eat, and communicate. These moments allowed them to learn from one another, share experiences, and strengthen social bonds, something difficult to achieve if they had to sleep early because of cold and darkness. By around 400,000 years ago, traces of hearths became common across Eurasia and Africa, showing that they had transitioned from merely keeping fire to actively creating it, perhaps by friction or striking stones together, though the exact method remains uncertain. Fire, therefore, was not just a tool. It was the foundation of the sweeping cultural and biological transformations of Homo erectus. With fire, they didn't merely adapt to their environment, they began to shape and control it to suit their needs. And from that moment on, human evolution entered an entirely new era. Once Homo erectus began using fire regularly, their collective lifestyle changed dramatically. Evening light and cooked food gave them more shared time, allowing social relationships to grow far beyond anything seen in earlier hominins. Some of the most compelling evidence of their social cohesion comes from pathological fossils. Many individuals suffered from conditions that would have been fatal if they had lived alone. One famous example is the fossil of an elderly individual who had lost nearly all their teeth yet lived for many more years. Proof that others must have provided soft food. Another case involves a juvenile with severe scoliosis and an adult with bone deformities. Both survived far longer than they could have unaided. These findings show that Homo erectus cared for and did not abandon their weaker members. This solidarity likely arose from their hunting-based lifestyle. When a group brought down a large animal, the amount of meat exceeded what a few individuals could consume, making sharing the natural choice. Sharing strengthened bonds and brought practical benefits, maintaining fire, protecting one another, and increasing the survival rate of children. Fossilized footprints in Kenya suggest that hunting groups may have consisted mainly of males, while females were responsible for gathering plant foods. This is not an absolute conclusion, but it aligns with patterns seen in many modern hunter-gatherer societies and helps explain why they developed relatively organized hunting structures. At the same time, Homo erectus infants required a long developmental period, meaning mothers likely depended on group support, an early form of cooperative child rearing. All these factors, caring for the weak, sharing large food resources, cooperative hunting, and group childcare, show that Homo erectus was the first human species to build a relatively stable and enduring community. This social foundation allowed them to adapt to diverse environments and pave the way for their expansion across Africa, Eurasia, and even several distant islands. Homo erectus was the most enduring human species in evolutionary history. They existed for nearly 1.9 million years, far longer than Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, or Homo habilis. This longevity reflects exceptional adaptability, strong physique, endurance running, stable aculen technology, mastery of fire, group living, and even the ability to cross the sea to expand their territory. Thanks to these traits, they could inhabit a wide range of environments, from the African savannas to Eurasian woodlands and the islands of Southeast Asia. One striking point is that for over 1 million years, their tools changed very little, evidence that they had reached an optimal design for their survival needs. Their wide geographic distribution also helped them avoid extinction from local climate fluctuations. In retrospect, the nearly 2 million year existence of Homo erectus far surpassed that of any other human species. Yet that very success raises an important question. How could a species so well adapted eventually vanish? Though Homo erectus endured for nearly 1.9 million years, they ultimately disappeared gradually and quietly, not from a single catastrophic event. There is no evidence they were wiped out by disease, volcanic eruptions, or direct conflict with other human species. Their decline occurred region by region, with the last known population surviving on the island of Java until about 108,000 years ago. The primary cause was climate change. Between 400,000 and 100,000 years ago, Earth went through repeated glacial-interglacial cycles that turned vast open grasslands into dense forests. These environments were unsuitable for the endurance hunting strategy of Homo erectus and lacked the large animals they heavily depended on for food. As megafauna across Africa and Asia dwindled or went extinct, Homo erectus lost a key survival advantage. In regions such as the Levant and Southeast Asia, their disappearance coincided with the loss of major prey species like straight-tusked elephants and the giant tortoise Megaloceles. The arrival of other human species, such as Homo heidelbergensis, Denisovans, and Homo sapiens, may have added further pressure through competition for food and territory. However, there is no evidence they were directly replaced or attacked by these newer humans. If competition occurred, it was most likely indirect. On Java, environmental factors became even more decisive. As dense rainforests spread, the region became unsuitable for their long-distance running physique and high-energy demands. With food sources scattered and movement restricted, Homo erectus groups became isolated, lost contact with one another, and gradually vanished from the fossil record. There is no evidence they evolved into another species. The extinction of Homo erectus closed the longest chapter of any human species, but their endurance laid the groundwork for the rise of later Homo forms, including our own. Homo erectus may have disappeared more than 100,000 years ago, but their legacy still lives within us. From the way we walk upright, our ability to run long distances, use tools, control fire, and cooperate in large-scale tasks, all stem from the adaptations they forged and preserved over nearly 2 million years. The long and stable existence of Homo erectus not only allowed them to withstand countless environmental changes, but also built the foundation on which later humans continued to evolve. Looking back, their journey was not an isolated story. It was the opening chapter of the entire human saga. And by understanding that first chapter, we can truly see the journey that Homo sapiens continues to write today. If you wish to uncover more mysteries about other ancient human species, stay tuned for the next videos.